Chapter 1 of The American Housewife. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Judd Niven. The American Housewife by Anonymous. Chapter 1. 1. Observations respecting meat. Meat, to be in perfection, should be kept a number of days when the weather will admit of it. Beef and mutton should be kept at least a week in cold weather, and poultry 3 or 4 days. If the weather is hot, it will keep but a short time. It should be kept in a cool, airy place away from the flies, and if there is any danger of its spoiling, a little salt should be rubbed over it. When meat is frozen, it should be put into lukewarm water and not taken out till the frost is extracted. If there is any frost in it when put to the fire, it will not cook well. The best way to boil it is to put it in cold water and boil it gently, with just water enough to cover it, as it hardens by furious boiling. The part that is to be put up on the table should be down in the pot, as the scum that rises is apt to make the meat look dark. The scum should be taken off as soon as it rises. The liquor in which all kinds of fresh meat is boiled makes a good soup when thickened and seasoned. Boiling is the cheapest way of cooking meat, provided you make a soup of the liquor. If not, it is the dearest, as most of the gelatin is extracted by the process of boiling, which is the most nourishing part, and if not used for soup is completely lost. In roasting meat, only the juices and fat are extracted, but not lost, as the juices make good gravy and the fat is good for various culinary purposes. When it is put down to roast, there should be a little water in the dripping pan. For broiling, the bars of the gridiron should be perfectly clean and greased with lard or butter, otherwise the meat will retain the impression of the bars. The bars of the gridiron should be concave and terminate in a trough to catch the juices, or they will drop in the fire and smoke the meat. A good fire of hot coals is necessary to have the meat broil as quick as possible without burning. The gridiron should be put on the fire and well heated before the heat is laid on it. The dish should be very hot on which broiled meat is put, and it should not be seasoned till taken up. If you wish to fry meat, cut a small piece of pork into slices and fry them a light brown, then take them up and put in your meat, which should be perfectly dry. When the meat is sufficiently fried, take it up, remove the frying pan from the fire to cool. When so, turn in a little cold water for the gravy. Put it on the fire. When it boils, stir in a little mixed flour and water, let it boil, then turn it over the meat. If not rich enough, add butter and catsup if you like. 2. Roast beef. The tenderloin and first and second cuts off the rack are the best roasting pieces. The third and fourth cuts are good. When the meat is put to the fire, a little salt should be sprinkled on it, and the bony side turned towards the fire first. When the bones get well heated through, turn the meat and keep a brisk fire. Baste it frequently while roasting. There should be a little water put into the dripping pan when the meat is put down to roast. If it is a thick piece, allow 15 minutes to each pound to roast it in. If thin, less time will be required. 3. Beef steak. The tenderloin is the best piece for broiling. A steak from the round or shoulder clod is good and comes cheaper. If the beef is not very tender, it should be laid on a board and pounded before broiling or frying it. Wash it in cold water, then lay it on a gridiron. Place it on a hot bed of coals and broil it as quick as possible without burning it. If broiled slow, it will not be good. It takes from 15 to 20 minutes to broil a steak. For 7 or 8 pounds of beef, cut up about 1/4 pound of butter. Heat the platter very hot that the steak is to be put on. Lay the butter on it. Take up the steak, salt and pepper it on both sides. Beef steak to be good should be eaten as soon as cooked. A few slices of salt pork broiled with the steak makes a rich gravy with very little butter. There should always be a trough to catch the juices of the meat when broiled. The same pieces that are good broiled are good for frying. Fry a few slices of salt pork, brown, then take them up and put in the beef. When brown on both sides, take it up. Take the pan off from the fire to let the fat cool. When cool, turn in half a teacup of water. Mix a couple of teaspoonfuls of flour with a little water, stir it into the fat, put the pan back on the fire, stir it till it boils up, then turn it over the beef. 4. A la mode beef. The round of beef is the best piece to a la mode. The shoulder clod is good and comes lower. It is also good stewed without any spices. For 5 pounds of beef, soak about a pound of bread in cold water till soft. Then drain off the water, mash the bread fine. Put in a piece of butter, of the size of a hen's egg, half a teaspoonful of salt, the same quantity of ground cloves, allspice and pepper, half a nutmeg, a couple of eggs, and a tablespoonful of flour. Mix the whole well together. Then cut gashes in the beef, and fill them with about half of the dressing. Put the meat in a bake pan, with lukewarm water enough to cover it. Set it where it will stew gently for a couple of hours. Cover it with a heated baked pan lid. When it has stewed a couple of hours, turn the reserve dressing on top of the meat. Heat the bake pan lid hot enough to brown the dressing. Stew it an hour and a half longer. After the meat is taken up, if the gravy is not thick enough, mix a teaspoonful or two of flour with a little water and stir it into the gravy. Put in a little butter, a wineglass of wine, and turn it over the meat. 5. Beef liver. Liver is very good fried, but the best way to cook it is to broil it 10 minutes with 4 or 5 slices of salt pork. Then take it, cut it into small strips together with the pork. Put it in a stew pan with a little water, butter, and pepper. Stew it for 4 or 5 minutes. 6. To corn beef. To every gallon of cold water, put a quart of rock salt, an ounce of saltpeter, quarter of a pound of brown sugar. Some people use molasses, but it's not as good. No boiling is necessary. Put the beef in the brine. As long as any salt remains at the bottom of the cask, it is strong enough. Whenever any scum rises, the brine should be scalded, skimmed, and more sugar, salt, and saltpeter added. When a piece of beef is put in the brine, rub a little salt over it. If the weather is hot, cut a gash to the bone of the meat and fill it with salt. Put a heavy weight on the beef in order to keep it under the brine. In very hot weather, it is difficult to corn beef in cold brine before it spoils. On this account, it is good to corn it in the pot when boiled. It is done in the following manner. To 6 or 8 pounds of beef, put a teacup of salt, sprinkle flour on the side that is to go up on the table, and put it down in the pot. Turn the water into the pot after the beef is put in. Boil it a couple of hours, then turn in more cold water and boil it an hour and a half longer. 7. Mutton. The saddle is the best part to roast. The shoulder and leg are good roasted, but the best mode to cook the latter is to boil it with a piece of salt pork. A little rice boiled with it improves the looks of it. Mutton for roasting should have a little butter rubbed on it, and a little salt and pepper sprinkled on it. Some people like cloves and allspice. Put a small piece of butter in the dripping pan and baste it frequently. The bony side should be turned towards the fire first, and roasted. For boiling or roasting mutton, allow a quarter of an hour to each pound of meat. The leg is good cut in gashes and filled with a dressing and baked. The dressing is made of soaked bread, a little butter, salt and pepper, and a couple of eggs. A pint of water with a little butter should be put in the pan. The leg is also good, cut into slices and broiled. It is good corned a few days and then boiled. The rack is good for broiling. It should be divided, each bone by itself, broiled quick, and buttered, salted, and peppered. The breast of mutton is nice baked. The joints of the brisket should be separated, the sharp ends of the ribs sawed off, the outside rubbed over with a little piece of butter, salt it, and put it in a bake pan with a pint of water. When done, take it up and thicken the gravy with a little flour and water, and put in a small piece of butter. A tablespoonful of catsup, cloves, and allspice improve it, but are not essential. The neck of mutton makes a good soup. Parsley or celery heads are a pretty garnish for mutton. 8. Veal. The loin of veal is the best piece for roasting. The breast and rack are good roasted. The breast also is good made into a pot pie, and the rack cut into small pieces and broiled. The leg is nice for frying, and when several slices have been cut off for cutlets, the remainder is nice boiled with a small piece of salt pork. Veal for roasting should be salted, peppered, and a little butter rubbed on it and basted frequently. Put a little water in the dripping pan, and unless the meat is quite fat, a little butter should be put in. The fillet is good baked. The bone should be cut out, and the place filled with a dressing made of bread soaked soft in cold water, a little salt, pepper, a couple of eggs, and a tablespoonful of melted butter put in. Then sew it up, Put it in your bake pan with about a pint of water. Cover the top of the meat with some of the dressing. When baked sufficiently, take it up. Thicken the gravy with a little flour and water well mixed. Put in a small piece of butter and a little wine and ketchup if you like the gravy rich. 9. Veal cutlets. Fry 3 or 4 slices of pork until brown. Then take them up, then put in slices of veal, about an inch thick, cut from the leg. When brown on both sides, take them up. Stir half a pint of water into the gravy. Then mix 2 or 3 teaspoonfuls of flour with a little water and stir it in. Soak a couple of slices of toasted bread in the gravy. Lay them on the bottom of the platter. Place the meat and pork over it, then turn on the gravy. A very nice way to cook the cutlets is to make a batter with half a pint of milk, an egg beaten to a fourth, and flour enough to render it thick. When the veal is fried brown, dip it into the batter, then put it back into the fat and fry it until brown again. If you have any batter left, it is nice dropped by the large spoonful into the fat and fried till brown, then laid over the veal. Thicken the gravy and turn it over the whole. It takes about an hour to cook this dish. If the meat is tough, it will be better to stew it half an hour before frying it. 10. Calf's head. Boil the head 2 hours, together with the lights and feet. Put in the liver when it has boiled an hour and 20 minutes. Before the head is done, tie the brains in a bag and boil them with it. When the brains are done, take them up, season them with salt, pepper, butter, and sweet herbs or spices if you like. Use this as a dressing for the head. Some people prefer part of the liver and feet for dressing. They are prepared like the brains. The liquor that the calf's head is boiled in makes a good soup, seasoned in a plain way like any other veal soup, or seasoned turtle fashion. The liquor should stand until the next day after the head is boiled, in order to have the fat rise, and skimmed off. If you wish to have your calf's head look brown, take it up when tender, rub a little butter over it, sprinkle on salt, pepper, and allspice, sprinkle flour over it, and put before the fire with a Dutch oven over it, or in a brick oven where it will brown quick. Warm up the brains with a little water, butter, salt, and pepper. Add wine and spices if you like. Serve it up as a dressing for the head. Calf's head is also good baked. Have it, rub butter over it, put it in a pan with about a quarter of water, then cover it with a dressing made of bread soaked soft, a little butter, an egg, and season it with salt, pepper, and powdered mace. Slice up the brains and lay them in the pan with the head. Bake it in a quick oven and garnish it with slices of lemon or force meatballs. 11. Force meatballs. Chop a pound or 2 of veal fine. Mix it with 1 or 2 eggs, a little butter or raw pork chopped fine. Season it with salt and pepper or curry powder. Do them up into balls about the size of half an egg, and fry them brown. 12. Calf's feet. Boil them with the head until tender, then split and lay them round the head, or dredge them with flour after they've been boiled tender, and fry them brown. If you wish for gravy for them, when you have taken them up, stir a little flour into the fat they were fried in. Season it with salt, pepper, and mace. Add a little butter and wine if you like, then turn it over the feet. 13. Calf's liver and heart are good broiled or fried. Some people like the liver stuffed and baked. 14. Collops. Cut part of a leg of veal into pieces, 3 or 4 inches broad. Sprinkle flour on them, fry them in butter until brown, then turn in water enough to cover the veal. When it boils, take off the scum, put in 2 or 3 onions, a blade of mace, a little salt and pepper. When stewed tender, take up the meat, thicken the gravy with flour and water, mix smoothly together. Squeeze in the juice of half a lemon, then turn it over the collops. Garnish them with the lemon cut in thin slices. 15. Plaw. Boil a piece of lean veal till tender. Take it up, cut it into strips 3 or 4 inches long, put it back into the pot with the liquor it was boiled in, with a teacup of rice to 3 pounds of veal. Put in a piece of butter of the size of a hen's egg. Season it with salt, pepper, and sweet herbs if you like. Stew it gently till the rice is tender, and the water nearly stewed away. A little curry powder in this converts it into a curry dish. 16. A fillet of veal. Cut off the shank of a leg of veal and cut gashes in the remainder. Make a dressing of bread soaked soft in cold water and mashed. Season it with salt, pepper, and sweet herbs. Chop a little raw pork fine. Put it in the dressing, and if you have not pork, use a little butter instead. Fill the gashes in the meat with part of the dressing. Put it in a bake pan with just enough water to cover it. Put the remainder of the dressing on top of the meat and cover it with a heated bake pan lid. For 6 pounds of veal, allow 2 hours steady baking. A leg of veal is nice prepared in this manner and roasted. 17. Lamb. The fore and hind quarters are good roasting pieces. Sprinkle salt and pepper on the lamb. Turn the bony side towards the fire first. If not fat, rub a little butter on it and put a little in the dripping pan. Baste it frequently. These pieces are good stuffed like a fillet of veal and roasted. The leg is also good cooked in the same manner, but it is better boiled with a pound of salt pork. Allow 15 minutes boiling to each pound of meat. The breast of lamb is good roasted, broiled, or corned and boiled. It is also good made into a pot pie. The forequarter, with the ribs divided, is good broiled. The bones of this, as well as all the kinds of meat, when put down to broil, should first be put towards the fire and browned before the other side is broiled. A little salt, pepper, and butter should be put on it when you take it up. Lamb is very apt to spoil in warm weather. If you wish to keep a leg several days, put it in brine. It should not be put with pork, as fresh meat is apt to injure it. Lamb's head, feet, and heart are good, boiled till tender. Then cut off the flesh from the head. Cut up the heart and split the feet in two. Put the whole into a pan with a pint of the liquor they were boiled in, together with a little butter, pepper, salt, and a half a teacup of tomato ketchup. Thicken the gravy with a little flour. Stew the whole for a few moments. Peppergrass or parsley are a pretty garnish for this dish. End of Chapter 1. Recording by Judd Niven, www.juddniven.com.